This is DaveNoseWorthyMMA.
I don't think that anyone would argue that UFC 217 was one of the best events ever. Like many of you out there, I still haven't collected myself from this past weekend. So much took place in such dramatic fashion. The word dizzying comes to mind when trying to put into a word the effect on fans this event has had. So much of the unexpected from the first fight on the card right on down to the main event. UFC 217 induced sensory overload for us MMA fans, and there's so much to dissect and to break down. Where do you begin? There was a lot to take away from this card, but at this stage, just a couple days removed from that historic night, my big takeaway is what I hope is something of a shift in the way a lot of fighters choose to conduct themselves going forward. We are in the entertainment era of the UFC, or in other words, the McGregor Era. McGregor's influence on the sport has been immense, and not just on the fans, but on his fellow fighters as well. His next-level trash talking coupled with his awesome performances in the cage has brought him major success and fame, unlike anything we've seen in MMA. And as a direct result of this, the impact it has had on the rest of the fighters is glaringly obvious. In the past few years, the amount of trash talk on social media and in interviews has increased exponentially. In this day and age, the general consensus is that you need to stir up drama to get fans invested in you as a fighter and to draw attention to your upcoming bout. And this is definitely true, and many have had success with this over the past few years. But the problem is, it's been a few years of damn near everyone trying to hype their fight through social media, disingenuous trash talk, and fabricated storylines. And for me, it cheapens the whole product. When every fighter is out there doing the whole pro wrestling thing and trying to talk over each other at press conferences, etc., it detracts from the specialness of the actual real heated feuds that exist and derive from real life situations. Which is why I was pretty happy about the outcomes of the top 3 fights on the card this weekend. And not because of the individuals who won per se, but the way those individuals represent themselves in the sport. GSP and Rose especially. Kenny Florian put out a tweet before this weekend's card kicked off and summed up things perfectly. It read, "What a different UFC environment George St. Pierre finds himself in. He became a superstar in this sport the old-fashioned way. Several years of hard work, skill, and consistency. Trash talk was not a part of the formula. Today, everybody wants and thinks they deserve it all right now." Truer words have never been spoken. We are at a stage in MMA where antics outside the cage have become so predictable and transparent. For me, a lot of the back and forth on Twitter and a lot of these promos that fighters cut in interviews is downright cringeworthy. There was a time not so long ago where if we had a situation where 2 fighters ended up jawing at each other, it raised eyebrows and added intrigue to the fight. Whereas now we're at a time where fighters will be criticized for not talking enough. I totally get and understand that this is entertainment, and I'm not one of those people who deny the relationship between MMA and pro wrestling, but we have to draw the line somewhere. I think that in a way it's poetic that the 3 fighters who chose not to engage in the pre-fight hype are the ones who ended up being successful, and that the other 3 who felt like they had to act a certain way when the cameras were on fell the hardest. GSP and Thug Rose prevailing in the way they did, and their unwillingness to engage in the theatrics and just let their performances do the talking is my preference for how this sport should be represented. TJ as well. While he did have some back and forth banter with Cody ahead of the fight, he was definitely the one out of the 2 who wasn't trying so hard. In the end, it's the outcome of what takes place in the cage that matters most. The wins inside the octagon is what gets that gold around your waist. I think feeling like you have to act a certain way when you're on camera or the mic is hot is a distraction, and I think that this was proven this weekend by GSP, Thug Rose, and TJ. Hopefully they can influence the other fighters on the roster the same way McGregor has.